If we hit 1,000 subscribers, I have a surprise gift waiting just for you. So, hit subscribe now. 23 missed calls, 1 voicemail, and the voice on it was shaking. That's what waited for me at 8 in the morning, after the night my own family thought I would just quietly disappear. My parents told me Christmas was canceled this year. They said money was tight. They said there was no way they could afford a big family dinner, no decorations, no gathering. I believed them. I felt bad for them. I even offered to help cover some of the cost. But while I was home alone, eating cold leftovers by myself, my sister was 3 miles away, live streaming the real Christmas party. The real one. The one with the tree, the lights, the laughter, my parents' voices, my cousins, all of it. Live, for the whole internet to see. And I wasn't invited. By the time I found out, it was too late to do anything but sit there and feel the floor drop out from under me. But this story isn't about me sitting there feeling sorry for myself. This is about what happened next. Because when my mother texted me the very next morning asking for $2,000 for rent, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just found out I was erased from my own family's holiday, I finally said no. And that no set off something none of them saw coming. The family I thought I knew. My name doesn't matter for this story, so let's just say I'm the middle child. Not the golden one, not the baby. The one who quietly kept things running. For years, I was the one my parents called when the car broke down, when the electricity bill was overdue, when my sister needed just a little help between jobs. I never kept score. I loved my family. I thought that's what family meant. You show up for each other no matter what. My sister, on the other hand, always seemed to float through life untouched. She had a way of making our parents laugh that I never quite matched. She got the attention. I got the responsibility. I told myself that was fine. Every family has roles, right? So when my mother called me in early December, her voice tired and apologetic, telling me that they simply couldn't afford Christmas this year, I didn't question it for a second. She said the bills had piled up. She said it broke her heart to say it, but there just wasn't going to be a big dinner, no gifts exchanged, nothing. I told her I understood. I told her not to worry. I even said I'd send some money to help ease things, if it would help. She said that wasn't necessary. Just come by sometime during the week, she said. We'll have a quiet lunch instead. I said okay. I had no idea that we didn't include me. Christmas Eve came, and I spent it exactly the way you'd expect someone to spend a quiet, canceled holiday. I ordered a small dinner for myself, wrapped a couple of gifts I planned to drop off later in the week, and told myself that family isn't about the size of the party, it's about the love. I actually believed that. Around 9 at night, I opened my phone to scroll for a few minutes before bed. And that's when I saw it. A notification. My sister was live. I almost scrolled past it out of habit, but something made me tap it open. And there it was. The tree. Our parents' living room. The one I grew up in, fully decorated with lights I recognized from every Christmas before this one. My father in his usual chair, laughing at something off-screen. My mother in the kitchen, pulling out a dish I could recognize by smell alone from 100 feet away. My aunt was there. My cousins were there. Even our family dog had a little red bow on. My sister was narrating the whole thing to her followers, joking about keeping the tradition alive, thanking everyone for being there. I sat frozen, staring at my own screen, watching a party I was told didn't exist. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not loud, just quiet and cold, like ice settling into a glass. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I just sat there in silence, eating my small dinner alone, watching my family celebrate without me through a phone screen. The morning after, the text. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying the stream, the laughter, the warmth of that room I wasn't allowed into. At 7 the next morning, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. I opened the message, half expecting an explanation. Maybe an apology. Maybe some kind of story that would make sense of what I'd seen. Instead, the message read, "Good morning, sweetheart. Can you send the $2,000 for rent today? Landlord is asking." No mention of Christmas. No mention of the party. No mention of me. I stared at that message for a long time. Something in me that had always made excuses, always given the benefit of the doubt, always found a reason to keep giving. It went quiet. For years, I had been the safety net. The one who never asked questions when the money requests came in. And in return, I had just been quietly written out of the one night that was supposed to be about family. I typed out a reply, deleted it, typed it again. Finally, I sent 4 words that would change everything. I don't pay people who lie to me. Then, I did something I had never done before in my entire life. I blocked my mother's number, then my father's, then my sister's, and I called the bank, cutting the line. I want to be clear about something. This wasn't a decision made out of anger alone. It was years of quiet patience finally reaching its limit. I called my bank first thing that morning and canceled every recurring transfer I had set up for my parents. The temporary help with their phone bill that had somehow lasted 2 years, the small monthly deposit I sent without ever being asked to stop, the emergency fund I'd quietly built for them that they didn't even know I still contributed to. I froze every single one. Then I went through my accounts and revoked shared access to anything they could still touch. A joint savings account from years ago that I had forgotten to close. An old family credit card I still paid off every month, even though I never used it myself. Every door closed. Every number blocked. I sat back in my chair and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly. Just relief. The relief of finally putting down something heavy I didn't even realize I had been carrying for years. I didn't feel guilty. Not yet anyway. I told myself I would deal with the guilt later, if it ever came. What I didn't expect was how fast the silence would break.
Stopped.
By 8 that same morning, my phone, the backup number, the one they didn't have blocked because I rarely gave it out, started buzzing nonstop. 23 missed calls in less than an hour. Then a voicemail. I almost didn't listen to it. Part of me wanted to just let it sit there, unheard, the same way I'd been left out the night before. But curiosity won. I pressed play. My mother's voice came through, shaking, cracking halfway through her sentences. She said the landlord had called. She said they were behind on more than just this month. She said she didn't understand why I would do this to them, especially now, especially when they needed me most. Not once in that voicemail did she mention the live stream. Not once did she ask if I was okay after finding out I'd been excluded from my own family's Christmas. It was only about the money. That's when everything became painfully clear to me. This had never really been about family, not in the way I always believed. To them, I wasn't a daughter, a sister, a person with feelings that could be hurt. I was a resource. A reliable, silent, easy resource that had finally stopped being silent. And they had no idea what to do now that the money had actually stopped. The real story comes out. Over the next few days, pieces of the truth started reaching me through relatives who still had my number. An aunt here, a cousin there, people who felt bad enough to reach out and explain what had really happened. The truth was worse than I expected. My parents hadn't canceled Christmas because they couldn't afford it. They had simply decided, quietly, without telling me, that it would be easier to have a smaller gathering, smaller meaning without me. My sister had suggested it. She said I always made things tense, and it would be more relaxed if it was just close family this time. Close family. As if I wasn't. The money struggles were real, but they weren't why I was left out. I was left out because it was more comfortable for everyone else to leave me out. And once I was already excluded, asking me for money the very next morning wasn't seen as strange to them at all. In their minds, my role hadn't changed. I would still show up financially, even if I wasn't allowed to show up in person. They had built an entire pattern around that assumption, and it had worked for years because I let it. Hearing all of this didn't make me angrier. It made me calmer, because now I understood exactly what I was dealing with and exactly why my next decision needed to be permanent. The turning point. I want you to understand something about this moment because I think a lot of people watching this have felt some version of it. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from realizing you've been loved conditionally. Not hated. Not abused in any dramatic, obvious way. Just quietly, consistently valued for what you provide rather than who you are. For years, I mistook being needed for being loved. Sitting there with the truth laid out in front of me, I made a decision that had nothing to do with revenge, and everything to do with self-respect. I decided that the version of me who quietly funded a family that quietly excluded her, that version was done. I didn't unblock anyone. I didn't send an explanation. I let the silence speak for itself, the same way their silence about the party had spoken to me. Instead, I did something I had never allowed myself to do before. I used the money I would have sent them, and I booked myself a small trip for New Year's. Somewhere quiet, somewhere I could think, somewhere no one could reach me by accident or on purpose. For the first time in years, I spent a holiday exactly the way I wanted to, not because I owed it to anyone, just because I finally understood I owed myself that peace. News travels fast in families, even broken ones. Within 2 weeks, my sister found a way to message me through a mutual friend's account, since her own number was blocked. Her message wasn't an apology. It was an accusation. She said I was being dramatic. She said the landlord situation had gotten worse because of me. She said I was punishing our parents for one bad decision. One bad decision. That phrase stuck with me. Because to her, excluding me from Christmas and asking me for rent money the next morning like nothing happened wasn't a pattern. It was one bad decision, something small, something I was supposed to simply absorb and move past, the way I always had before. I didn't respond to her message. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood that responding would only invite the cycle to start again. The apology that wasn't really an apology, the guilt trip disguised as concern, the slow return to exactly where we started. Weeks passed, then a month. The calls stopped completely. The silence, once so heavy and painful, slowly became something else. It became peace. Where they are now, I heard, eventually, that my parents managed to sort out their rent situation on their own. It wasn't easy and it wasn't fast, but they did it without me. Which told me something important. They had always been more capable than they let on. They simply hadn't needed to be, because I had always stepped in first. My sister, from what I understand, still tells people I abandoned the family over one holiday. She's never once mentioned the live stream to anyone outside our circle. Some stories only survive when half of them stay untold. As for me, I've built something quieter, but far more solid. I still see the family members who reached out with honesty, the ones who felt bad enough to tell me the truth when no one else would. Those relationships, the real ones, only grew stronger once the pretending stopped. I never asked for an apology. I stopped waiting for one. Here's what this whole experience taught me, and maybe it's something you needed to hear too. Being needed is not the same as being valued. A family, or a friendship, or any relationship built only around what you provide will always treat your absence as an inconvenience rather than a loss. The real test isn't how people treat you when they need something from you. It's how they treat you when you're simply there, present, with nothing to offer but yourself. I didn't block my family out of anger. I did it because I finally understood that love without respect isn't love at all. It's just convenience wearing a familiar face. If you've ever quietly given more than you received, if you've ever felt like the reliable one while somehow still being the one left out, I hope this story reminds you of something important. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to close the door, even gently, even without a dramatic goodbye. And sometimes, the loudest message you can ever send is silence. If this story meant something to you, let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had to walk away from people who only valued what you gave them, not who you are, you're not alone. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story.